Hello, welcome everyone to another Astro Talk on EA Zoom. I'm Robin Grabfelder, and today I'm joined by Sue Hillyard, Astro Tara McGillicuddy, Adrienne Gibson, and Matthew Engel. And we're going to start out by discussing Mercury turning direct.
Yay.
Yes, as we were talking before, that it's been a little bit challenging.
Yes, it's standing still now, getting ready to turn direct tomorrow, right?
Yes.
Which means it's at very intense point right now.
Yeah, yes, and it's very pronounced in everything that it's permeating the atmosphere with Mercury, which is kind of interesting with all the news that's coming into our world about this and that.
Yes, the overabundance of information and news.
And fear driven.
Yes, and confusing.
Yes.
I think Pisces can be confusing because it's
Yeah.
not pinpointed. It's not, it's not about the details. It's about the diffusion.
And the hiding of the details.
Yeah.
And the hiding of the truth.
Yeah.
The seen and the unseen.
And feeling our way through the confusion into divine grace.
Yes.
Yes. I think our
Trying to connect.
Yeah. Our thoughts at this time have an emotional undertone. And we're really needing to look within and find what's wanting to be seen rather than looking to the outside to get the answers. The answers are inside. And that in and of itself is scary and brings about fear when we have to actually turn within and see what's really going on.
Yes.
What is our inner truth?
Yeah.
And it's very close to the North Node and is
That's
hovering.
what I was just going to say.
Yeah, it's hovering. It's been, it went forward over it, and now we're back, and it's going to station right before, and then go over it again. So it's we're moving ahead, moving forward,
and joining Mars.
We're aligning our thought processes with this future self, how we're going to be moving forward, aligning with this Pisces energy.
And
hopefully.
how we desire to direct our lives.
Yes, the idea.
With all of the chaos that Pisces can bring, where sometimes the fear-driven imagination and fantasies can take on a life of their own, that internal chaos, and sometimes the perception of external chaos as well. I think where there's opportunity for healing is we can use our imagination to embody that divine grace, to embody and create a reality that is filled with love, that is filled with that which we are seeking to create.
Yeah,
it's important that we do that.
I think having compassion and empathy, not just for others, but also ourselves. Because we are kind of grieving, letting go of our old self so that we can step forward entirely new.
Right.
Yeah.
Born. Yeah.
And it ties into the Saturn-Neptune conjunction too, with Neptune ruling Pisces. So we've got this. I think it's a whole new world that we're dreaming into existence. We're feeling into it, and figuring out how we want it to be.
Right. And it's still in the unknown. So that's where we need to stay strong and hold on to our faith and not let fear take over.
Right.
Yeah. And, we're also, just past the new moon in Pisces too, at the very end of Pisces, and shifting over into this Aries you know, so we're again in between worlds, you know, we don't know what's coming, but we can feel that there's something coming.
And
That's
that
what I
new
was
moon
getting.
in Pisces was also so right on the edge of that crisis or aneretic degree point. It was at 28.5 or 28.40
Mhm.
degree Pisces, which
Yeah.
is, you know, only a matter of, I think it was like 36, 37, 38 hours from the equinox point.
Yep.
That transition, that ingress of Pisces to Aries, it's such a replicated theme we're dealing with right now.
Yeah. And I was thinking that it kind of ended the eclipse season too, you know, having the new moon, you know,
Yeah.
we're the eclipse window has, you know, is kind of closing, but you know, now we're in this, you know, trajectory toward the next eclipse season.
Right.
Mhm.
I had noticed a pattern that the pattern really started last fall in September when we had the two, well, I guess the first one is we had two new moons in Virgo, and that the 0
Mhm.
degrees was the first
Mhm.
moon, and then at 29 degrees, and then every new moon since then has been either at 29 degrees or 28 degrees. Like, so I'm like, wow, that's an interesting concept, this idea of
Yeah.
closing something off
Mhm.
while beginning something new at the same time. It's
Mhm.
that same energy, this Neptune Aries energy for the last 6 months we've been living it.
I was
So I think,
talking about that a little bit before, how I've been struggling this week with the new moon and the Pisces energy, and then especially as Mercury is stationing, I'm a Gemini Sun, Gemini Mercury. So whenever we were talking as well about Mercury being in water and how it's challenging sometimes, my logical linear brain does not like it when it's diffuse.
Slogging through water.
Yeah. So, and I feel like I'm trying to walk through water, think through water, all that stuff. But the idea of being in this liminal space, like we've been talking about, that endings and the beginnings, and we know that something old has died, but the new is not yet born. And I like to think of Pisces as the cosmic womb. And so I've really tried to just float, kind of just float this week in this, before everything, becomes brand new and starts all this new growth, because it's coming. But yeah, it's a challenging space to be sometimes when
It is.
we're used to being so very linear. And I love that you talked about, Matthew, the love and being in that space of what we're creating. And Tara mentioned it too, from the inside out. And so when I think about being in the womb, I mean, that's like the safest place we can be, right? So sometimes it's helpful to me to think about being surrounded by that compassion and that love.
That womb reference makes sense for this Cancer. um,
I have Venus in Cancer, so yeah, I know I know that feeling as well.
Isn't it
Venus
interesting?
in Cancer also.
Isn't it interesting? We've got this very water signature group today.
we do.
And to be drawn to Jeffrey Wolf Green's work, which is so much about the subconscious. I mean, it's all about the subconscious and the depths of the psyche and all of that, which is where the signature of water wants to go in terms of trying to understand from that depth.
Yes, and the moon and you know, growing through the emotions.
And Mercury has had the ability, while it's been retrograde in Pisces, to go down into the depths of the unconscious, and bring something up to the surface so it can be integrated and healed in a way it couldn't before, because it couldn't be seen until now. So, and the other thing I think right now that I've really had to do is just, like Kara was saying, trusting the flow, not releasing control, trying to micromanage everything in my life and be in control of everything just isn't working right now. You have to let go of that, and it's difficult.
Yeah,
It
the
is, and that
South
was the
Node
other
in
thing
Virgo.
What's that? Sorry,
The South Node in Virgo opposing all of that, in Pisces. So we are being asked to let go of all of that critical judgment and breaking everything down and trying to figure everything out. And we're being asked really to just let go with the flow and trust in our inner wisdom and try to connect with our intuition.
On the brink of Aries, I think it brings in that layer of the challenge because Aries, being the beginning of the zodiac, the initiator of all things, also wants to get it done like yesterday.
Now,
And
Yeah.
now already, absolutely. There's that drive, which can be so magical about Aries and its capacity to initiate change and to really start to get things done. And yet we're not fully immersed in Aries energy yet. We
No.
will be. Give it a few weeks. I
will
mean,
be,
a
and
month
then we'll
from
have to
now.
hold on.
Right.
Yeah.
A month from now, the energy field we're all dealing with collectively and individually is going to be so vastly different
Yeah.
because we've got such a marked stellium of Aries coming
Yeah.
by mid-April. But that feeling of like that urge, I've got to change, I have to step forward, I have to start the race.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yet with the Piscean elusiveness and ambiguity and fogginess or the confusion or thinking you have it figured out, but then it can change sometimes by the hour.
Mhm.
There's a restlessness that I
Yes.
think is kind of rampant through our collective psyche.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah, for sure.
our potency and assertive self has been watered down. We want to assert, we want to feel potent, but right now we can't. Not yet.
Yeah.
One of the
Yeah.
things that I wanted to mention too, because that it goes along with what you were just saying, is this week also we have Chiron conjunct Eris. And so I think that really speaks to that feeling of restlessness, that feeling of I need to get moving and I'm being held back. And I think the collective is really reacting to a lot of that. There's wounding there. And there's also that need to, not stay hidden anymore with Eris.
Yeah.
It's also,
Tara, I'm really glad you said that. That adds a whole signature for me that I hadn't thought of because I know Eris has been sitting there right around that 24-degree area point for how long now?
Yeah.
Years.
Yeah. But that's a whole other dimension. Would you actually talk more about the significance of Eris influence?
Sure. I don't know as much about it. Maybe Sue can speak into it too, because I know she or Robin know more about the asteroids. But for me, what I've been feeling into, and I think I wrote about this in one of my posts recently about Kali, the energy of the goddess Kali, how their destruction and chaos, it feels from, our linear purposeful driven lives that, oh my gosh, what am I going to do when there's chaos or when something is destroyed? But how much fertile ground is left? And I feel like that's the Pisces stuff that's going on right now. It's really watering to prepare this ground. And so I think that, again, that's what we're reacting to. That's what I've seen. That's what I felt in the collective is that the Chiron wounding, the Eris part of us that feels like it's been hidden in Aries. So it's our will, our desire to move and be authentic. And that's where it's been suppressed. That's where it's been oppressed sometimes. Yeah. So if anybody else wants to speak in,
so you
that's
feel like
my feeling.
is there, that feels to me like there's just an opening getting ready to happen as Chiron and Eris come together. And I think it's interesting with the sun in Aries at 0 degrees. It's like, yeah, we're in the womb, but we are crowning. And then there's this energy that comes with it. Like that's the restlessness I think you're talking about, Matthew. It's just yeah, we all know something new is coming, but it's not
It's a
just
birthing.
there. We're in the birthing process and very shortly. I mean, I don't know. I think I always think about 0 degrees as yes, we've started the new cycle, but kind of like a new moon, it's all black still. We don't quite see it yet. But within a few days, we'll be able to see that sliver of what's coming.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, to me, Eris is about Eris is about outsiders and also about standing up for the underdog and being in Aries for 100 years. It we all have it in Aries, and so we're all of our Erises are being activated. Eris isn't Eris a minor planet?
I think it's
it is.
considered
Yeah.
a dwarf planet. Mhm.
Yeah,
The
And
dwarf planet.
a dwar-
it's like
uh,
Pluto.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. It's a
Pluto, Ceres, and Eris. Yeah,
yeah, and it is considered to be like Pluto's sister, kind of
Yeah.
the equivalent of the warrior, the female warrior. And I think that that having the conjunction with Chiron is activating all of us to stand up for what we believe in and what we think is right, and no more staying in the background saying, oh well, it doesn't matter. No, I think we have to stand up and speak up for what is right and what we want. It goes back to the to me back to the Saturn Neptune in Aries, is dreaming into what we want, and we can't just stand by any longer. and
yeah.
and
It's also about challenging the oppressors.
yeah, yes, absolutely. Yeah. And doing it in our own way. We each have our own way of doing things. And that's the important part is to do it in our own way, I believe.
Isn't it interesting? Because just yesterday, the day before it was in the news, was that I may botch the exact title, was the Secretary of War who resigned from the Trump
Defense.
administration, or Secretary of Defense
Well,
who
oh,
resigned.
the one that resigned. No, that was an intelligence
Yeah,
undersecretary or something.
undersecretary, but
Yeah.
pertaining to defense and war.
Yeah.
um, in
Yeah.
Aries,
Yeah.
speaking up. When you said speaking up against the oppressor and with the warrior, that was what made me think of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Well, that-
Yeah, he said that he couldn't in all good
Mhm.
consciousness continue working
How,
the
how
way things
Mercury
are going. Yeah.
retrograde of him.
Right.
He did
Yes.
some deep internal work in there and brought some stuff up, and he couldn't to go forward. And
Yeah.
I'm hoping that this happens I think this is really important about the Aries energy that we're moving into. Each one of us acting as the individuals that we are after we get over the wounding of not being able to do that, and this Eris energy of bringing this forward. The collective doesn't shift except through the individual shifting. We all are the collective. And so as people stop waiting for somebody else to do it, or watching, we're watching these world leaders go on and just start all of this mayhem, when we all have the ability to act and to really move in a different direction.
I like what you're
Yeah.
saying, Adrienne. Like, it's like we're claiming our right to exist, our right to
Yes.
take up
Yes.
our unique place in the world. And it does start with the individual. It starts with the individual and trickles out to the collective. It's
Yes.
not the other way around. So,
And that individuation, that I am principle, is so much about what Aries is.
Yeah.
So we are needing to differentiate our own selves, our own authentic voices. Yes, as active members of the collective with Pluto and Aquarius. I don't know a lot about Eris. I do know some, but I was thinking about something that a couple of you were talking about. I'm thinking about kind of the juxtaposition, or the conjunction rather, with Chiron piggybacking off of something that you just said, Tara, about that, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but that wounding, that feeling of not being seen, not having being deprived of a voice or a value, that chironic wound involves, there's always that sense of not being seen, not being heard, not being valued, or understood. But with Eris conjuncting Chiron, are we all collectively kind of navigating, who am I in context of whatever community, whatever group, as part of society? What is my place here? What is my voice? What is my value? What is my truth? How do I speak that? How do I assert that? How do I differentiate myself from whatever group or institution or family or system of which I'm part?
I love that. And because actually it's squaring Pluto.
Wow. There you go.
So there you go. Everything that you just said.
Well,
Is-
yeah, and I see that as part of the Aquarian theme.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep.
So maybe it's a collective, like, can I be me
Mhm.
and also connected to the other?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I 100% feel that. And I think that that's a lot of what we're learning with Aries. I have Pluto in Libra, so my polarity point is Aries. So that's what we're
Likewise.
learning, right? How to be in relation to the other, but not lose myself.
Yes.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
Yes.
that's
Because
all
isn't
of
that
us.
the Chiron wound where we've all actually lost ourselves in the collective,
Right.
and now we're having to move beyond that and really reclaim who we are and our place in the collective.
Yes.
I love that. One step at a time, right? That's the South Node in Virgo.
I guess it is.
It's still
Yes,
important to do that.
And and Mercury rules the South Node, and to
Yes,
have
it does.
conjoining the North Node, I think is at this time, like there, I all of the astrology that is lining up. You were talking about, Kara, you were talking about the all of the moons being all
Adrienne
of
was
the
mentioning
new
that.
moons being in, at the later degrees of signs. It's like we're finishing up, we're bringing stuff from the past out into the open, and hopefully finishing it up so that, we can then move forward.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I was going to say earlier, and I got sidetracked. And I think Matthew practices this way too, so you'll probably feel into this, but I think everyone will. Is, when all that stuff comes up, that's when we have to take a look at it. But so often it's so hard to look at those things, look at our shadows, look at our challenges, and so we end up reverting back into what's familiar, right? And
Yeah.
so this is the opportunity, all this Aries energy, to say, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to embrace my courage and really do something different this time. And not to say that we're not going to stumble and, mess up and all that, and that's okay. But yeah, all this, the ability to bring something to fruition in a new way. I mean, that's what I'm feeling into this the equinox.
There was something that Eric said a couple of meetings ago that I really took with me. Was it would it have been the lunar eclipse where we had the moon in Virgo? No, it would have been the solar eclipse with moon in Virgo conjuncting the South Node. When he referenced that speaks collectively to something that's not fully resolved, that we still need to finish up. And Kara, something that you said about just like, one step at a time, I'm thinking about just kind of the universal, life is messy. It's complicated. It's never perfect. It's as individuals and as a society, something I often say to my clients: congratulations, you're human. You are perfectly imperfect.
Yes.
And that is part of divine grace. It's accepting that. It's never, with Pisces, we there's always the illusion of of some kind of divine, pure perfection,
Yeah.
that romanticized vision or something that we're chasing that doesn't really exist. We can't quite grasp. And that Virgo South Node can get into that berating, perfectionistic. We're never going to be perfect.
No.
I don't think we have to be,
No,
but we're
it's very
working that
true.
out.
We just have
Yes.
to be ourselves.
Yes.
Right.
That's it.
What is our truth in this moment?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. In this moment, because it's going to change in the next
It'll
moment.
change, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course.
And I think that is part of the Piscean energy that I love. Having a 12th house Mars is learning about that self-compassion, learning
Yes.
to accept that part of me that isn't perfect, that is human, that is messy, that makes mistakes. I mean, self-acceptance is, it's one of the hardest things I've had to work on in this life. So I imagine it's similar for others.
Yeah, I would think. I had a bit of a meltdown yesterday, and I thought, oh, I hope I do a new moon ceremony where I write on a piece of paper what I'd like to get rid of and what I'd like to start anew for this cycle, and then I burn it. And I had a little bit of a meltdown. I just being human. And
Right.
but then, and I was so glad. I was like, oh, wow, it happened before the moon. So while Mercury was retrograde, it got brought up from the surface. I get to see it and look at it. And that's what I wrote. But I really would like to do that less in the future. Not that it'll never happen again. I am human.
Of
But
course.
I think with
Yeah.
all this Pisces energy, another theme that has really been coming up is how we get lost in other people. We don't have the boundaries that allow us to stay sane sometimes, I want to say, because there's this fusion that takes place with others. And so we no longer belong to ourselves. We're belonging to another. I think as we move into this Aries energy, it's about coming back to ourselves and belonging to ourselves before we can relate to anyone else, if that makes sense. I mean,
Oh,
before
yeah.
we can actually connect, because when we don't have the right boundaries, it's really easy to self-sacrifice and get into relationships that just really aren't actually healthy and good for us, and we don't really know or see what's actually happening. So this will be a time of stepping back and getting really in touch with ourselves, knowing ourselves enough to know who we are before we enter relationships. I mean, that's a big thing here.
It
I
is.
love that you're bringing that up. That to me speaks to this Venus and Aries squaring the now direct Jupiter in Cancer.
Right. That's what I was looking at.
What's home for us? What's our sense of self? And then what do I want? Venus and Aries.
Yep.
What do I want? Who am I in this? And how do I then, going back to this idea of, right before we're ready to take a step over the threshold, we pull ourselves back because we're protecting something, right? That's the Cancer energy. So, yeah.
Can I speak my truth while holding space for somebody else's reaction without getting lost or swept away or consumed by that person's reaction?
Yes.
Is anybody else working with a lot of clients right now going through themes of breakup?
Yep.
Relationship endings, having those hard conversations, being worried about how the other person's going to react. Are they going to be angry? Are they going to be hurt? And just kind of building that emotional muscle to say, your truth matters. No, it doesn't have to overtake the other person, but similarly, you don't have to be swept away or disempowered by the other person. We're each entitled to have that set of feelings. And it's okay. Do we have the emotional muscle to be in the presence of both without acquiescing in a way that we lose ourselves?
Right.
Yep, I think that speaks beautifully. Thank you for that. I mean, I think to me that speaks to that square perfectly. And then what are we going to do? It's the crisis in consciousness, right? So how am I going to change something, or am I going to stay in the same pattern? Yeah.
Yeah, I love Einstein's quote. I think it's Einstein. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
Yeah.
I mean, I say that to myself, and just as a reminder that no, you have to choose a different way to have,
Change.
actually change. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love, Matthew, that I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry, Tara, if I did. How you use the word emotional muscle. I've been using the word emotional capacity, or the phrase emotional capacity, with Jupiter and Cancer. So it's the same thing to me. It's just,
Totally.
how am I building this space within myself? And Tara, you were talking about boundaries. So that's, to me, what that means is it's this container that I can hold my feelings in and be in, while you're in your container having your feelings, and it doesn't have to overtake one or the other,
And nobody has to be wrong.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is the challenge in our world, right?
Totally.
Yes, forever.
Because we like to judge, and we draw a line in the sand. This is me and that's you. This is us and that's them.
Yeah. But I think that's part of the South Node energy, that we've all been trained that everything is separate, and we're incorporate that separateness, because in ways we are, but we're also one. And that's the part that hasn't really been nurtured in this last, I don't know, thousands of years, that
Right.
Because we can do such, destruction to we're doing such destruction to everything because
Absolutely.
we see ourselves as separate instead of part of a whole. Like, and I think that part of this energy that we're moving through now with the nodes in Pisces and Virgo is to look at that and incorporate the opposite. Yes, we are separate, but we are also whole. And in that whole groupness as humanity, we have to have compassion for each other and for ourselves, and help nurture each other and forgive each other. And I don't see this out of my eyes yet, but I'm also realizing that until I can do that for myself, I'm not necessarily going to see it outside of myself. So I work hard to have compassion. But I think that's where we're all working through.
Adrienne, I love everything that you just said. Something specifically that had my mind kind of wandering a little bit. You talked about, the ways that we're destroying the earth. And I mean, I'm thinking about what's going on with war right now. And just yesterday, there was like an oil tanker or an oil field that was bombed. And isn't it ironic? We've got war in the Middle East, at least partially predicated upon the battle over oil.
Yeah.
So we're blowing each other up over to gain control over this thing that's environmentally destructive to the earth. Isn't that paradoxical?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Mercury is just gone direct, so we're seeing that.
Well, and two, this makes me, I mean, we haven't pulled it up yet. If you want to change screens, I'll stop sharing. But when Uranus goes into Gemini, about how two things can be true at the same time. Firstly, I wanted to mention about what Adrienne was saying, how we are separate, but we are part of the whole. Like, those two things can be true at the same time. And I think Uranus and Gemini may help the collective start to see that. And then the paradox that you mentioned, Matthew, about how we're doing such destruction, and then we're doing destruction upon destruction because of this, and how paradoxical it is, and how backward it feels sometimes to think about that. And are we going to be able to make the changes that need to happen for our survival? Uranus at the end of Taurus.
Am I correct that one of the layers of Eris has to do with the strategic warrior?
Mm-hmm.
Again, because Eris is, I'm not the best with asteroids and dwarf planets, although Pluto very much is up in my wheelhouse. I'm wondering if we could talk a little bit about what is it we're working out with regards to war, because that is certainly the shadow side of Aries, and we are moving into this very Aries emphasized time. I mean, that may be a different talk perhaps next month if I'm jumping the gun, no pun intended. We can always table that. But we're on the brink of this.
Yes.
And I think with Saturn in Aries, I wrote a blurb about this a few weeks ago, that part of it, with Saturn in Aries, but also the Saturn-Neptune conjunct and all the planets we've got moving into Aries, part of what we are working out as a society is how to use war, how to use a self-assertion, how to use this archetype. And in the beginning of any sign, it's never refined. It's the urge to express in the beginning, like that 0 degree point, for example, or the crowning. Adrienne, I think you were the one referencing birthing, where it's crowning and it's new and it's fresh and it's this blank slate, but it's also kind of unrefined.
Yeah. It hasn't happened yet. It
hasn't developed.
Yeah, Aries is the baby, right?
But the
We don't know what we're
recluse who's
doing.
running around like wildfire, right? Racing like a crazy horse.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That year of the horse.
And
Fire.
Uranus in Gemini can really reflect the idea of, a warring between the minds in war with one another. And it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I mean, you just go back to the 1940s of what was going on, the atomic age, bombings, it's paralleling, somewhat what's happening right now. So it's about how we as a collective can somehow find a way to make peace. I mean, I just think peace is not easy.
And the head games of like the Cold War era.
Yeah, the head games.
Well, yeah, and I think that speaks to AI. I mean, we've been talking about that a lot with the Aquarius energy, and then Uranus, obviously, in Gemini. What's real, what's not real, deep fakes, all of that kind of stuff. So I think definitely we're going to have to be watching out for that, and all the more reason to have that compass be within, the building of the internal compass, because it's not going to be able to come from the outside. I know we've been talking about that, and that was kind of a little jaunt off the side there.
When I think about Uranus and Gemini, one of the things that comes up for me is an element of fear around volatility, because Gemini can be so quick to react, and Uranus, of course, is so rapid fire. Kara, would you or anybody want to speak to some of that? Sort of the containment of, or the evolution of that energy?
Shall I bring up the Uranus ingress chart?
Sure, I'll stop my share.
Where do I find the share screen? I forget.
It's down at the bottom. There's a little up arrow on the bottom.
Okay.
Bottom row.
It used to be green. Mine's not green anymore.
It used to be
Mine's
green.
just black and white now.
Mine's still green.
And just for reference, April 15th, tax day in the US, the sun will be conjunct Eris, between Eris and Chiron.
Oh, wow.
When we'll have a whole stellium of Aries.
When everything's in Aries, except for Venus. But yeah, when Mercury is at 0 degrees, Mars will be into Aries.
Will Venus be in Taurus by then? I haven't looked
Yes.
at that. Oh, good. A ray of hope for
yes,
peace
that's
and
that's our saving grace for that one.
Okay. So can we see it now, everybody?
Yeah.
Yes.
So as Uranus ingresses into Gemini, it's going to be conjunct Sedna and Venus. And it will be squared the nodes and the moon and Eris.
Wow.
And it will be trine Pluto and Juno.
Yeah, that looked like a really active,
Seriously.
really active time.
So yeah, Uranus ingress squaring the nodes says a lot, and squaring the moon at 0 degrees of Virgo.
Right, and coming up to the square of the nodes. I mean, we're in this.
Approaching it. Yes.
What is Sedna's influence on Venus in that mix? Is it Sedna? Am I reading that correctly? Is it
Yeah,
Sedna in between Venus and Uranus?
Yeah.
that is Sedna. And that does speak to the things that have been going on in the sea, in the ocean, with the bombing of the Venezuelan ships and the Strait of Hermes and all of that, and the spilling of all the oil.
Will it change what we value?
Hmm.
Will it change the value of oil?
Well, but certainly changed the price in the last 2 days.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
Yes.
will it change how we depend on it, maybe?
And how we value it,
Is that
because
possible?
we do need to change our relationship to oil
Oh, for sure.
and
What
the
I
way we
think
value
is-
it.
I think it's so interesting that, Uranus has just here moved out of Taurus, and then it's like conjunct Venus, which is so interesting. And then the sun also moves in Taurus. So it's like highlighting this energy that's been changed and then something new. And that's a new phase energy between Uranus and Venus. And so it's just a new way of valuing a new perspective, perhaps.
Yeah, the
That would be
interesting.
good.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I'm good.
Uh, the um the conjunction with Uranus and Venus will perfect before they both go into Gemini, which is interesting that I wonder if that will be some sort of a crisis or some sort of a something that awakens. Uranus is
Yes.
the great awakener, so
Right.
Yeah, because they'll conjunct at 29
to the
Taurus.
ocean. I live in Santa Barbara County, and due to this is it an executive order or the war powers declaration that our president just made? They're resuming oil production in the Santa Barbara Channel after the spill that we had in 2015, which shut everything down. It shut all
Right.
all oil down, and now another company has bought the oil pipeline from Exxon, and had been trying to get permission to start pumping again, and the county here and the state are fighting it on environmental and the fact that it's not safe. The pipeline is so corroded that they I think they pointed out over 100 places where it was so corroded that it needed repair. And it's just old technology and old infrastructure that that this chart really makes me worry with Sedna in there between Venus and Uranus having just
Right.
ugh.
Well, isn't Sedna, and I also am not very up on the dwarf planets, but isn't Sedna the one that is about regeneration? There's an energy of
Yes.
regeneration. The fingers have come off and she's
Right.
this whole new life. So I see that regeneration being there right next to Venus is perhaps these are the things that are coming up, and we're not going to be doing the old way,
Yes.
picking up oil as usual, which is what's trying to happen at the same time, but that we really get this regeneration energy, this ability to look at our value structure differently. I mean, we've just had 7 years of Uranus through Taurus. I, I think that our values have changed. I think that was the point. And and now perhaps a different perspective is coming in, and we'll have 7 years to do that. But I just think that we get to regenerate our perspective, and we get to experience a different set of values.
That's
Yes.
kind of what I was, yeah, that's kind of what I was leaning towards when I first said that about, maybe our relationship to it is going to change,
Right.
hopefully in a positive way. And I see, because Uranus is also the innovator. So let's find new ways of creating this energy. We already have it, the technology. We're just not using it because we're so used to and we're so invested in.
Exactly.
Hey, I've got an idea. How about wind?
I was just going to say that. Yes. But the regeneration with this composite of air signs, this composition of air signs, wind power and something which is regenerative, whereas Uranus in Taurus, where we've seen, so we're at the crisis degree or approaching the crisis degree of Uranus and Taurus, excavating the earth for this volatile substance, oil. And we've also seen in the Uranus and Taurus years the worst wildfires in history. Certainly in California, but not just in California. We saw that in Colorado. We saw that in the Pacific Northwest, Canada, and France last year, in different various countries in Europe.
Yeah.
So are we regenerating? Are we transitioning? Might this give us that proverbial kick in the butt forward to look at shift the value around something using power or electricity, using solar, using wind, using regenerative tools rather than destructive and quantifiably limited tools.
And likely through some kind of a sudden, unexpected event.
Yeah, that's a little scary, but
All the oil fields get bombed.
Oh,
That's it. Bye-bye. See you later.
Then we have no
Pipeline
choice
gets
but to
blown
do
up.
we have no choice but to do something different. And unfortunately, we as a human race tend to be reactive rather than proactive. So
Absolutely.
it's probably going to take some kind of, I mean, Jeff even talked about this with Pluto, like how we resist, and then there's a cataclysmic event that forces us into evolution. So unfortunately, sometimes that's how it goes.
And Uranus brings that cataclysmic event.
yeah.
To wake us up and show us that we need to innovate and find better ways forward.
Well,
And
we still
free
have
us of the
all those
dependency.
planets in Aries where we get to do something new.
It is volatile. But Uranus can free us of dependency on that old way. And because it's been traversing that fixed sign of Taurus, there is like the perpetual going after the same thing, because Taurus doesn't want to change, but Uranus says you have to.
Yeah.
And the more you resist change, the more volatile Uranus influence can be.
And Gemini loves change.
Yes.
Gemini thrives on change.
and we do have to remember that Uranus rules Pluto and Aquarius. So, this is going to be our
and in that trine,
changes. The only thing certain is change or something like that.
Yeah.
And I keep thinking, about that, the first quarter trine between Pluto and Uranus. That's Leo energy, right?
Yeah.
So it's individual creativity and, moving from a different place inside out, I guess, is where I just kind of keep going with that. And I think that's why we all do what we do, right? That's why we study astrology. That's why we practice with, clients. I almost said patients. I'm a former nurse. So, that's why we want to try to offer this kind of, just guidance and support for people, because it's a chaotic time. And not that we have all the answers, but we can see things from a different perspective and maybe bring, potential positive movement going forward. At least that's
Awareness,
my goal. Yeah.
Right. With that trine between Uranus and Pluto, something I think about that's often kind of understated with trines is that the opportunity is there. The shadow side of a trine is complacency. It's just not using the opportunity that's being provided.
right?
But just even going back, for example, to technology and fuel, I think this could speak to, we have the technology already developed. It's already there to draw from power other than oil, for example, to draw from solutions. Let's just, even if we remove oil and electricity and that kind of stuff from the picture, because the strategic element of air for problem solving in general, there is technology that has been developed. There are opportunities there. And I think depending on different people and different groups' level of consciousness, there will be use of that technology, use of that opportunity within certain communities, and others who will just kind of ignore, hey, here's the opportunity. I think it's also interesting because, just one last quick thing, the early Pluto and Libra generation, of which I'm part, that's also creating a grand air trine in our charts. Pluto and Libra, Pluto now transiting Pluto in Aquarius, Uranus, and early in Gemini.
I'm feeling it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm noticing a lot of the politicians that are speaking up are of that generation, which I think is great, because it's time for a shift, into some new faces, new voices.
And I think a lot of our Pluto Libras are finding our voices.
Yes.
Because we're the we don't care generation, right? Gen X.
Right, the lost generation, Gen X.
Whatever,
Yeah, and speaking to the complacency of the trine, there's the sextile to Mars, Saturn, and Neptune in Aries to help to hopefully spark and motivate that energy. And then that Pluto and Libra generation people, that kind of completes that.
Mm-hmm.
Sure does. Wow.
Yeah, definitely. It fills in that grand sextile that's forming.
Right.
The
Leo
point,
too. Pluto and Leo too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yes, but the point that's missing is Libra.
Well, no, we have the Pluto and Libra.
No,
people.
that's what I'm saying. But in
Right.
today's
Yes.
today's astrology, the
So
point
Matthew,
that's
we're
missing.
the answer.
We're the answer. Exactly. That's
I don't know,
that was
Tara.
my
I
point.
think Tara is probably Pluto Scorpio, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're doing your thing too.
Well, yeah,
Of
the Pluto
course,
Scorpio
yes.
generation
we
will
all are.
transform the whole thing and bring out all the depth in the underworld and transcend.
And make us look at it. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's work.
in the way that only Scorpio can. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So do we have any other charts that we want to look at, or do we want to think about wrapping up? We've been going about an hour.
I was going to just ask about the equinox chart. Does anybody have that? I didn't pull it up myself.
We just had?
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
No, the equinox chart for tomorrow.
320, yeah.
I don't
The
think
Aries ingress?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. It is the equal.
No.
I can pull it back up real quick. I think I've got
Yeah,
it.
I don't have that.
All right, let me pull it back up.
I have the sun entering Aries,
Yeah,
There,
that's it.
yeah, that's
There
what
you
we're
go.
talking about.
April 3rd.
Oh, look at that beautiful chart.
And
Still in the
this is a Greenwich chart, so we can use the houses to
Right.
apply to everyone.
Mm.
Oh, cool. I like that.
Wow, Sun, Saturn, Neptune in Aries, but it's in the eighth house.
Yeah. And then everything else in
Hello.
the ninth. Yeah, that's
Wow.
It actually
Still
mirrors
looking
the
at it.
one of the eclipse charts of my own chart. A lot of very strong eighth and ninth house stuff going on.
So I did this chart when I didn't have I was using my old computer, and the two of the asteroids that are on there are America, they're the 12th house, and Russia, they're in that area of Libra that we were talking about, which I thought was interesting.
Wow.
That's why I left them in there.
So is Russia the is that the symbol in the second house?
Yes,
Okay.
at 3 degrees Libra
Oh,
retrograde.
wow.
Oh.
Posting all about Aries.
Yes.
And yeah, they are the opposition. They are what's controlling what's going on.
so
A lot
perhaps
of it.
with Mars still being in Pisces during all of this Aries energy, that's actually maybe what's going to help soothe some of the volatility, perhaps.
Yes. And it looks to me, yeah, Mercury goes direct right after the ingress. So at the ingress, Mercury is still retrograde, is what my point is.
But direct isn't within minutes, within an hour,
Within I think a couple of
couple of hours.
hours.
Because we're talking Greenwich time. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So stationing, yeah.
Yeah, but it is stationing, which is announcing, it's permeating.
Because of the Mercury stationary position and the Saturn, Neptune, Sun conjunct, and air. It's like I feel like the whole sequence. It's just magnified, supersized, and multi-layered.
Yes,
Everything
absolutely.
about the Aries ingress for this
Yes.
equinox chart this is a much more substantial equinox or season change chart than we would ordinarily see.
Oh, absolutely.
Agreed.
Yes. I mean, every part of it. Yeah, and the other one, the asteroid that's conjunct the south node is Lucifer. And I am not an expert on Lucifer. I know it's the light bearer, but it also has the connotation of, Lucifer. So there's that. And it's retrograde, and it's, about to, it'll go back over the south node again. They'll meet again. So I think I keep seeing these themes of the past being brought into the present, so that we can move on into the future.
Yes.
It's interesting if we're looking at Lucifer from like the Christian tradition. It's also known as like the deceiver. And so it's interesting that Mercury is also considered the trickster.
Mm.
And so at these opposition, with the nodes, it's interesting, as Robin was even mentioning at the very beginning, about this misinformation and overload of information, and how are we going to discern South Node and Virgo, what's real and what's not, North Node.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because the deceiver and the trickster and all this energy, I've been looking into the Hermetic principles a lot lately. And it's like all of the perspectives that we've been working through, it's almost like just a few perspectives are being saying this is the reality, even though there's way more perspectives than that, but everything else kind of gets submerged. So I wonder about how Lucifer comes in being the light bearer and also Mercury, the trickster, like how much of how we perceive reality isn't somehow twisted or manipulated as a trickster, or and to be able to bring light to that, to be able to see, oh, we've just been looking at reality through this perspective, but it's not necessarily the perspective, because all perspectives, according to Hermetics, is only half of the truth. Like you can't have the whole truth. And so everybody's perspective is valid, but for some reason we've been looking at one group's perspective and we're all locked into that kind of vision. And they
And
work
they're trying to
hard
force us into it.
stay that way. It's not.
Yes.
So I just think that it's interesting that Lucifer is sitting there next to the South Node.
Absolutely.
That is
Does-
true. And with the takeover of media, I mean, they're really trying to force the perspective that they want us to
Yes.
see.
Yeah.
Does Chiron in Aries in the ninth house of higher education, higher teaching, higher philosophy, might that offer opportunity for healing, how we use information, how we resolve conflict, how we resolve duality?
Mm.
And I
Yeah.
love that, yeah, Venus in the ninth in Aries. It goes back to what is my truth and how can I be honest about that?
Yeah. And how can both of those truths exist at the same
To
time?
coexist.
And that my truth is valuable, as
Yeah.
is yours.
Everybody's, yeah. Unless, of course, you have somebody's truth that is harming humanity, then
Yeah.
Right.
there's
There's
Yeah.
still, yeah, there's
Within
always
reason.
consequences, regardless of whether it's
And
true or not.
how to deal with that really is the big dilemma for humanity right now. How to deal with the perspective of the truth of those that are harming the rest of us.
Well, that are speaking louder than all of us, and because they're speaking louder and more emphatically, it's taken as the truth,
Exactly. That is the point, but it isn't necessarily the truth. It's their truth.
Exactly.
We're all being forced to play that truth. And to me, that's where it becomes dangerous. Particularly, most of the people on the planet just want to live and raise their kids and enjoy life. But we've got this group of people that have labeled themselves as our rulers and our bosses,
Right.
Yeah.
but they're causing mayhem.
And so dealing with that is, I think like the main thing, the main point that humanity needs to come to terms with and overcome in this time.
Yes. Hence, Pluto is in Aquarius. We get some time to work on it.
A long time,
A long time, a pretty long time.
right?
Yeah.
I think 23 years from inception. Pluto spends a long time in Aquarius.
And
So
so
I
I
think a
think,
lot of the disruption that we're feeling and seeing right now, because everything is so new and
Yeah.
we're just learning to, get used to this energy. What is it going to feel like? How are we going to respond to it?
The
Yeah.
newborn baby, right? A newborn baby can't even see,
Yeah.
only can see shadows. It takes time.
yep, that I love that. All we can see is shadows.
Yeah.
And
And
the first 10 degrees,
learning
sorry.
learning about where am I in relation to everything else? Like, where do I begin and where does the world end? I mean, where is the border between me and the outside?
That's interesting that you say that. That makes me think about like the first Saturn square that we come to, where it's like up until then, you are really linked with mother. And then at that first Saturn square, you begin to make a delineation between yourself and the other. And I'm
Right.
wondering if that 7 years isn't, um, doesn't cover this kind of a journey as well, given that Pluto's going to be in Aquarius for, 20 years. And
I would think so.
yeah.
And Uranus
Knowledge.
is in a sign for 7 years, to
Right.
match up with the Saturn cycle.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Lot to consider.
It's a lot to consider.
Yeah.
Yep, we're just going to have to go out and live it. Here it comes.
And that's Aries, right? We're just gonna do it.
Do it.
It's just to do it and then get the feedback and try again.
Thanks, Nike.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
I know every time I say that, that's what comes to mind. It's like,
Me too.
yeah.
This has been nourishing.
Yeah.
It's always great to talk to you guys and bounce off of each other. I appreciate very much all of your input. It really helps round me out in many ways.
Yeah,
Me
absolutely.
too. There's really a richness and a substance and a heart that you all bring, which I really appreciate.
Me too.
Yeah. Well, this feels like a place to leave this. What do you guys think?
I'll be curious
any final
to
thoughts?
I'm eager to listen to the recording from the one you're facilitating this evening, Sue. I can't make it. I'll be in a class, but
Right. So tonight we'll be having another Astro talk at 9:30 this evening Pacific time with Marty and Michael.
Well, I'll be sure to watch that one because it'll be after midnight for me.
Yeah, it's late for some, early for others.
Right.
That we are worldwide.
Yeah, and isn't that awesome?
It is totally awesome. Yeah.
Definitely. One of the positive aspects of the internet.
Yeah. Yeah. We can all be at the different places at the same time together.
I know. I
That's
love it.
Iranian, is it not?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Very Uranian.
Well, I'll be excited to then see us, if we do this again next month around when Uranus ingresses and after we're fully into and through Aries season and how things
Think of it.
come up. Yeah. And what's come up and changed. And yeah, maybe we could talk then about the nodes shifting and some other shifts that are happening in the summer.
Yeah. And what exactly has been initiated?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll have a clue by then.
Yeah.
Right.
because that initiation is happening in full force.
Mhm.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Lots and lots of
Absolutely.
Aries. Yeah.
Yes.
Lots of Aries.
Hopefully I won't be quite so cloudy and foggy and I'll be a little bit more
I have that
focused.
hope as well.
I'm anticipating.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you
Thanks,
all.
everybody. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
We'll see you again.